Hello, I'm Mike Shearer, Executive Editor of the Columbus Dispatch and Dispatch.com. I'm here today with reporter Cole Behrens to discuss our Sunday cover story for December 8th about the continuing challenges students are facing nearly 5 years after COVID-19 sent them home to learn for many months to a year in some cases. Thanks for sitting down with me today, Cole.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Great. So, it's hard to believe it's been 5 years since all that happened, but the ramifications obviously are still very prevalent in our schools. And when you were reporting on this, one of the issues you uncovered involves research that found, quote, a large number of parents nationwide aren't even aware of the dire circumstances schools and their children are facing. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, a Gallup poll from 2023 last year found that nearly 8 in 10 parents say their child is receiving mostly B's or better, and almost 9 in 10 believe that their child is at or above grade level in reading or math. The study found that parents placed a highest emphasis on the grades that their children are receiving on the report cards. So, but I think that the statistics don't play out that the average child is at or above reading level or grade level, especially in reading and math. For example, the National Center for Education Statistics found that last year, 44% of students began their last school year a year behind grade level in at least one academic subject. It could be reading, math, science, any of the core subjects we think about. And in Ohio specifically, the third grade reading level is improved. It's maybe back to about where it was before the pandemic, but there's at 64.5% proficient at their third grade reading level. But the average math score is even further behind that, with just 55.9% of students proficient in algebra. So when you think about it, it's almost half of students aren't at where they need to be in Ohio when it comes to math.
So what explains this gap between what the reality that teachers are seeing versus what parents think their child? How do we explain that gap, or can we?
Yeah, so much was lost during those times when it was remote or hybrid. Looking at the numbers, in 2021 school year, 66 or 51.9% of students were not proficient in reading, and before the pandemic, 61.1% of students were proficient in math. So we've lost a lot of progress since then. And it's bouncing back, but the numbers just really play out that, a lot was lost during the pandemic in terms of math and reading. And I think math especially, because when you think about math, it's, very step-by-step that, if you miss the bus, you're running to catch up to the next bus stop, and you might not make that one. So you might be in 5th grade, and you're struggling to do some of the basic stuff that you might have learned in 1st grade, kindergarten, just when it comes to basic addition and subtraction.
Okay. So if you think about it, and I didn't do the math on what year here, but we're 5 years in March. So if you were in 1st grade or so when the schools closed, when sent kids home in 2020. They've never known a full school year that was not impacted by COVID in some way. Whereas your high school kids had probably a better foundation to work with as they're in high school today. What are the experts, when you talk to people, what are they saying about this issue?
Well, I think that, a lot of the experts, and especially the Ohio local experts, are really concerned about the math element of it, because reading, you can sort of catch kids up. You can use pretty intensive recovery programs to get them back up to speed on reading. But with math, they're finding a lot of kids just really, really are struggling right now with what's going on, and sort of getting them up to the level where, especially algebra, where it starts to really ramp up in difficulty. Like you said, if you missed 5 years of school, or not in 5 years, just those basic foundational blocks. Yeah. But I think a lot of the experts are saying, and starting to see some of the correlations with chronic absenteeism, growing chronic absenteeism, the sort of potentially change in culture around education that's driving a lot of these challenges in bouncing back.
So chronic absenteeism was a problem before COVID, but it's gotten a lot worse since COVID.
Yeah, it doubled since COVID, really. It doubled or even really over doubled in the 2020-21 school year, because, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, it's hard to track the kids who are logging in online, who, may have just clocked out mentally from school because of, the challenges with the pandemic. I mean, it's still almost double what it used to be before the pandemic. I mean, it's at about hovering around 25%. The governor, Mike DeWine, has promised earlier this year to cut it in half within 5 years. And I mean, there's a lot of tools and approaches that school districts individually are using, that the state is trying to encourage districts to implement. And I think a big change is sort of moving away from like a punitive approach, like truant officers coming and threatening and not even threatening, but saying, these are the potential legal consequences for absenteeism, instead of moving toward, now we're starting to move towards, this is bad. Like statistically, students that suffer from chronic absenteeism that are missing more than 10 days of school a year have a direct, for any reason. It could be sickness, it could be, you're going on vacation on Thanksgiving or whatever. Yeah. But if you're missing those days of school, you're missing 10 days of school a year, you are more likely to drop out, you're more likely to underachieve in life, and you're more likely to just overall struggle academically.
So the 10-day, missing more than 10 days is what's defined as chronic absenteeism.
Yeah.
And the rate was, again, Ohio last school year was?
Last year it was 25.6.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, 20. So 1/4 of Ohio's school children missed at least 10 days of school last year.
Yeah, right.
And obviously, the more they miss, the harder it is to catch up, and class goes on whether you're there or not.
Yeah, it's hard for teachers, too, because now teachers need to do extra work as well to educate, catch kids up. Even if they're sending home take-home packets, they still got to make sure, especially, again, in math. I mean, I keep hitting on math. But, I mean, math is one of those things where it's like, if you're not learning in the class and you're not following along and you're not, with the progress that the rest of the class is making, you might like get off the bus, as I said earlier. I mean, you're going to be left behind. And that requires a lot of extra work on the teacher's part to get you back up to speed on that, or extra, tutoring or extra support is required there.
Okay. So have parents changed their views on the importance of being in class every day in education because of COVID and because they had kids at home so much, or?
Yeah. I believe that there was a study in the Brookings Institute that found that a lot of parents, and a lot of parents who have children who suffer from chronic absenteeism may not even understand the serious consequences that can come from it. They aren't necessarily super concerned that their kid is missing 10 days a year, because I mean, on paper, 10 days doesn't seem like a lot. I mean, it's
2 weeks, yeah,
2 weeks of school, but those 2 weeks really start to add up. If you're missing 3 days of school a week, 1 week for any reason, it could be sickness. But I mean, those kids need to do a lot of makeup work to make up for it. And I don't think the parents really understand the gravity and how that can truly impact the education.
Okay. You spoke to some parents for the story. What was their general view of where things stand with schools?
I think a lot of parents do recognize that there's been a lot of change and a lot of maybe even challenges that have come from the pandemic since then. And even today, I mean, I think a lot of parents see kids struggling. A lot of parents see kids with growing anxiety, mental health issues, and behavioral problems in class. Even if it's not their kid, they hear about, this kid did X, Y, and Z in, their kid's class. So there's definitely, I think, an attitude among parents that, things may not be where they were at in 2019.
Okay. Yeah, you talked to a teacher, too, who said she's seen a rise in other challenges like behavioral problems, anxiety, and even getting kids just to pay attention, which I know, if they're kids, it's always challenging to get kids to pay attention. But some kids, she said, quote, continue to hide behind face masks for years after they were required. So, and obviously, housing insecurity has been an issue, too. So when you talk to teachers, what kind of message, and school leaders, what kind of things did you hear from them?
Yeah, I think that there's a growing awareness, teachers, administrators, districts, that mental health challenges are really driving a lot of the academic challenges that we're seeing in schools, that, they need to make an extra effort to meet kids where they're at, meet kids with the needs that to address their mental health problems. I think that a lot of schools in the Central Ohio area, Southwestern's a big one that does this, and I know that Columbus City Schools does this as well, as they bring in Buckeye Ranch counseling, and those counselors can really address some of the bigger problems that maybe a school guidance counselor or in-house counselor might not be necessarily as equipped to handle with issues. Even chronic absenteeism can factor into mental health.
Yeah.
If kids are just scared of going to school, they have anxiety. Sort of addressing those holistically can lead to better educational outcomes for parents and students.
Okay. Well, it sounds like it's safe to say that our schools have more challenges than ever as they try to help our children learn. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you consider, even like we talked about earlier, 25% of students aren't making it to school or missing 10 days of school or more a year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Cole. Appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us on From the Editor this week as we talk to Cole Behrens here at Report Dispatch about his story on COVID's long shadow over schools. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.